Border Patrol agents are overwhelmed with the massive influx of illegal immigrants. The number are like anything we've ever seen.
The situation at the southern border of the United States has become a crisis that cannot be ignored. Every day, thousands of migrants attempt to cross into the country illegally, putting immense strain on our immigration system and border security. The cold, hard facts paint a troubling picture. Illegal border crossings skyrocketed to over 249,000 in December 2023 alone, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection data. This shattering the previous record of around 224,000 set in May 2022. This influx is being driven by a perfect storm of factors: political instability, violence, and economic hardship in Latin American countries, coupled with perceived lax immigration enforcement policies in the U.S. Towns and cities along the border are bearing the brunt, facing issues like overcrowded detention facilities, increased crime, hits on local resources as they struggle to accommodate the surge of migrants, and disruptions to businesses and daily life. The situation is rapidly spiraling out of control. But what are the real root causes that gave rise to this crisis? What's being done by officials to try to address it? And what are the potential solutions being proposed from different sides to finally get a grip on this unprecedented mass migration event? In this video, we'll lay out the cold, hard facts about the southern border crisis with the latest data and insights from experts, officials on the front lines, and impacted border communities themselves. It's a highly complex issue, but one that demands attention and action. The roots of the crisis.
Secretary Mayorkas' willful refusal to comply with immigration law is the root cause of the border crisis.
To understand the current border situation, we have to look at how we got here. The crisis didn't start overnight. It has been building for years due to a combination of policy decisions and global factors driving migration. Let's go back to 2020, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Under President Trump, the administration essentially closed the southern border through the use of Title 42. A previously obscure public health law that allowed immigration authorities to immediately expel migrants, including asylum seekers, without due process. While Title 42 drastically cut illegal crossings initially, it then caused a concerning trend. Single adult migrants from Mexico started making repeated crossing attempts since they could just be rapidly expelled and try again. Border encounters with single adults skyrocketed from around 15,000 in April 2020 to over 62,000 by December. So even before Biden took office, we were seeing the highest border numbers in over 2 decades. Experts argue Trump's actions like family separations and Remain in Mexico were ineffective deterrents that only temporarily suppressed arrivals before large spikes followed. When President Biden ended Title 42 in May 2023 upon the expiration of the COVID public health emergency, it eliminated a key enforcement tool. Combined with the rescinding of other Trump policies like Remain in Mexico, this signaled to migrants that the border was now more open. Social media posts highlighting the policy changes arguably encouraged even more to make the journey. The Biden administration has struggled to handle the massive influx. Over 3 million of the nearly 6 million migrant encounters from 2021 to 2023 had no confirmed departure from the U.S., with only a fraction properly screened for asylum or removed. Processing centers were overwhelmed, forcing a redirection of nearly half of Border Patrol from security operations. The numbers don't lie. The statistics lay bare the enormity of the current crisis. Migrant encounters at the southern border hit a staggering 249,653 in December 2023, according to Customs and Border Protection data. That shattered the previous record of 224,000 set in May 2022. After reaching a low of around 16,000 monthly encounters in April 2020 due to Title 42, the numbers soared past 200,000 a total of 10 times in the following 3 years, a threshold that had not been crossed since 2000. And the demographics driving the migration have significantly shifted in recent years. While Mexican nationals and those from the Northern Triangle countries of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras have historically made up most border crossers, now a majority come from further afield. In December 2023, over half of all encounters involved migrants from outside these traditional sending nations. Venezuelans hit nearly 47,000, second only to Mexicans, and there was even a surge from as far as China, with 6,000 encounters of Chinese citizens that month, compared to just 900 a year prior. Perhaps most concerning is the growing number of families making the dangerous journey. 41% of December's encounters involved people traveling as families, over 100,000 cases. That's up 65% from the prior December, indicating more children are being put at risk. This composition shift complicates matters further. Single adults can be detained and deported more easily, while families with children must be processed through legal channels and released into the U.S. pending asylum hearings, straining resources. The eye-opening impact.
If you're on the terrorist watch list, you pay extra to not be caught. There could be thousands upon thousands.
The sites at the border lay bare the immense strain this mass migration event has caused. Processing facilities never designed for such an influx are overwhelmed, with migrants cramped into holding cells and outdoor areas. Nearly every sector is now in crisis mode, shifting personnel and resources just to keep up with the daily intake. In the El Paso region, for example, the Border Patrol converted a former warehouse into a massive processing center, complete with food services and medical care, to handle the thousands of daily arrivals. Just getting migrants temporarily processed and released with court dates for asylum claims takes days due to the backlogs. At the height of the crisis in late 2023, up to 45% of Border Patrol agents were pulled from national security duties along the border to assist with intake processing. The costs have been staggering too, with the administration forced to pull billions from other agencies. At over $25.9 billion, immigration enforcement now receives more funding than the FBI, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, and Secret Service combined, with the lion's share going to Customs and Border Protection. Between new migrant processing facilities, medical care, transportation, and court staffing needs, the current migration crisis is estimated to cost American taxpayers over $20 billion in 2023 and 2024 alone. The situation is equally dire on the Mexican side of the border. Cities like Juarez and Tijuana became filled with makeshift migrant camps as thousands were returned there under the Remain in Mexico policy, straining local resources and infrastructures. Reports of crime, human smuggling, and horrible living conditions for migrants were rampant. Border towns caught in the crossfire.
According to Customs and Border Protection, this disruption started at about 1:30 on Sunday, and this happened at the Paso del Norte Bridge in El Paso, Texas.
While the images from the border itself are shocking, the crisis has also greatly impacted the border towns and communities caught in the crossfire. Some border cities have seen their populations swell by over 20% due to the influx of migrants being released. In El Paso and other regions where migrants are processed and released en masse, shelters were pushed beyond capacity, forcing thousands to resort to sleeping in parks, streets, and other public spaces while awaiting immigration hearings or transportation. The combination of overwhelmed infrastructure, lack of affordable housing, increased demand on schools and social services, and a general atmosphere of crisis has frayed life for millions of border town residents. Once peaceful backdrops are now flooded with militarized border operations and increasingly hectic asylum processing. While many border communities welcome immigrants and aim to assist however possible, there are concerns about sustainability. Basic services can't keep up. Businesses suffer disruptions, and there are worries that unchecked immigration could destabilize town economies and public safety. The discord is exemplified by clashes like the border riots that broke out in El Paso in late 2023. As thousands of frustrated migrants protested conditions by shutting down major crossings for days, residents grew furious about the disruption to businesses, schools, and daily life from the unrest. National Guard troops had to be deployed to restore order. Safe and secure border towns are absolutely vital for regional economic activity and U.S. national security. But with the crisis showing no signs of abating, many fear these communities are being pushed to a breaking point without a coherent solution in sight. Public outcry and the political battle.
They're welcome if they come legally. They're not welcome if they're illegal. And plus, these people are not vetted. We don't know who's in there. With
the border crisis now severely impacting parts of 5 U.S. states, it's no surprise the issue has become the top concern for many Americans based on polling data. A Pew Research Center survey from early 2024 showed 80% of U.S. adults rated the federal government as doing a very or somewhat bad job dealing with the immigration situation, and 77% categorized it as either a crisis or a major problem facing the country. Conservative critics argue the Biden administration's policies, like ending programs like Title 42, catalyzed the current crisis through lax enforcement that effectively left the border open and served as a magnet for migrants. Liberals counter that Trump's hardline deterrence efforts were inhumane and did nothing to address root causes like violence, poverty, and political instability, driving people to flee their homelands in search of asylum. They argue the U.S. has a legal and moral obligation to properly assess asylum claims. With the 2024 election looming, the border crisis has become a prime political battleground, with both parties proposing starkly different solutions. Republicans have coalesced around resuming harsh deterrence and building more border walls to physically restrict entry. Meanwhile, progressives want more robust asylum processing, aid to stabilize migrant homelands, and a pathway to legal status for millions currently in legal limbo awaiting court dates. More centrist Democrats seek compromise through a combination of border security and creating more legal migration channels. The American public seems somewhat split, too. A small majority supports allowing migrants to remain in the U.S. to make asylum claims over immediately deporting them in polls. But there is widespread frustration with the disorder and concerns about fairness, public safety, and sustainability of the current approach. With long-entrenched partisan positions and no easy solutions, the future remains highly uncertain for the millions caught up in this hemisphere-spanning humanitarian crisis. Now it's time to hear from you. What did you think about the facts and perspectives shared in this video on the border crisis? Do you think the current situation qualifies as a legitimate crisis, or is it being overblown? And what potential solutions would you propose to address the root causes driving migration while also protecting U.S. borders and communities? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching.